Okay, hello everyone. So excited to do this again. Just checking in with my admin team to ensure that we are all set tech wise. So go grab something to drink, a snack. You can just relax and be present here. We will get started in just a minute or so. Okay, yay. I will get started because I think people are going to be able to get the replay link and I don't want to waste any more time. We're going to be here for the next hour or so. Hold on one second. It's working. Yay. If you're here and need anything, Tia is my admin person. She is fantastic. So just want to set that up. If you're having any tech issues or have any questions that come up, feel free to put them into the chat. Tia will respond. There she is. She will respond. Tia, we did tell everybody 3:15, didn't we? Yeah, we did. Maybe if you're here already, that's what we can do. We can do some intros for a tiny little bit. Maybe type into the chat where you're calling in from, where you're logging in from. I always love hearing where different daughters of immigrants are coming from all over the world. So let us know where you are listening in from, and maybe one thing you really hope to get out of today. One thing you really want to understand, one thing you really hope to get. The title is Breaking Cycles Without Breaking Ties, not breaking ties with our families, not breaking ties with our cultures. How do we heal as daughters of immigrants with an awareness of, a recognition of, an honoring of our cultures, but at the same time, shifting the things that don't work within our cultures? How do we do that dance of this and that? So if you're here, would love to have you tell me where you're calling in from and what do you really hope to get from this as we wait for people to have a few more minutes to log right on. And if you're here, great, amazing. I'm going to fill up my water because I will be talking a lot in the next hour. I can't wait to see what you all chat and to get to know you. All right. My kids are on spring break this week. As we're waiting for people to jump in and join, my son is taking a nap. He's not feeling very well today, so he stayed home. He might venture out in the next hour or so, but usually people love saying hi to him. Amazing. Live. A couple more minutes here and we will get started. If you just joined, go ahead and type in where you're calling in from, where you're listening in from, one thing you really hope to get from today. We're talking about breaking cycles, recognizing that many of our cultures have certain elements embedded in them that have been responses to things they've gone through. but that are not helpful, not necessary to continue on into the next generation or even in our lives. So we want to break cycles of intergenerational trauma, of patterns in our families that don't serve us anymore. And at the same time, how do we do that in a way that's culturally affirming without throwing the baby out with the bathwater? While still honoring that maybe us collectivistic girlies want to keep elements of our culture, that's an important element of who we are. And I'm going to talk about that a lot today because it's very relevant to my story. So, how do we break cycles but not break ties with our culture, with our family, with our community? People come to my program to figure out a way to find what I call the other path. It's not a middle path because it's not necessarily that these are two poles and you're finding the exact middle ground between them. It's finding your own unique path. What works for you? How to engage more actively with the work of breaking cycles, but also with the work of engaging and re engaging and reclaiming parts of our essential goodness of our cultures. So let me know where you are listening in from. You can type that into the chat. If you see the hi there, that's Tia, my admin, my right hand lady, the person with, without whom I could not do any of this. She's really the everything you see is done because Tia has somehow done it. So she is there should you need. She'll be fielding questions. So type in where you're calling from, where you're logging in from, and something you might want to get from this discussion today. And we will get started here as people log on. Okay, I'm going to jump right in because we only have an hour together. And I really want to share some of how I came to doing this work and some of the insights that took me years and years of pain, trial and error that I want to just offload to you. I want to give these to you free. At the end of the call, I am going to talk about my group program. I'm going to offer you a fat bonus stack. And even if you never do my program, everything that I'm saying in here, I want to download that to you anyway. I want to offer that as my free gift. So the next hour, I don't want to fluff. I really want to just tell you my story and get right into all the things that took me so many, trial and error periods, blood, sweat, and tears to come to. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Pauline Yegnazar Peck. I guess I'm going to be Dr. Yegnazar from here on out. I'm actually in the process of a legal separation. And again, all the cultural elements that go into that. This is part of the breaking cycles. I will not stay forever and ever in a marriage just because you're not supposed to not be in it. That's the part of the breaking of the cycles I don't see ending a marriage as a failure. I see it as a growth and an expansion. And just because we're not going to continue as a couple doesn't mean we don't have tremendous respect and love for one another. So all that to say, I am Dr. Pauline Yegnazar, and I'm a licensed psychologist who specializes in working with the daughters of immigrants. Why? Because I am one. I'm actually an immigrant myself. I was born in Iran to an Armenian family, moved to Los Angeles at the age of 4. So I turned 4 right around the time. Hi from Europe. Hello, hello. Moved to Los Angeles right when I turned 4. And I grew up with my parents pastoring a Farsi-speaking church, so the Iranian community, the Armenian community, and then the American kind of white community. And very early on, I could sense there were so many different cultural nuances between these 3 contexts. There was a different church me versus a school me with my, white friends versus the Armenian me at home. And this very early on helped me recognize that the cultural context really matters. Fast forward to being in my 20s and my mom passing away and, really starting the first time in my own therapy experience, which I thought was very, very weird. I did not grow up in a family or a community that really thought therapy was this first place you go to when you're dealing with something big in your family. But I decided to try it out and had this, completely life-changing experience where it was really helpful. And I was like, wow, a lot can change just talking to a stranger. And also I felt like there were so many elements that were missed because Richard, my first therapist, just didn't have an understanding of my cultural background. And so I went back to grad school to learn more and do this work. And truly, grad school was not where I learned all of this. I learned it in all of the clinical work that I did with fellow children of immigrants and realizing and hearing so much of my story echoed in their story. What I particularly do is help to support and empower the adult children of immigrants in being able to break cycles without breaking ties. So, what does that mean? It means to really truly have a deep awareness of how trauma has been infused into a lot of our cultures because of forces and events outside of our not awareness, outside of our control. So, how oppression, colonization, violence, displacement, war, how these things actually create the very circumstances where we learn adaptations. And if those adaptations keep us safe, help us to survive, they get passed on from generation to generation. And now something that we think is cultural, meaning part of our culture, is actually an adaptation that got infused into our culture. So part of breaking cycles, I see as twofold, is to understand the ways that our cultures have adapted to take these things in, while at the same time returning to the essential goodness of our cultures. So you can break ties, but you can break cycles without breaking ties, meaning without looking at your culture as less than, without looking at your culture as inadequate, without looking at your culture as wholly toxic. And truly, even before my mom had passed away, before she was passing away, actually, from end of high school on through college and definitely into early grad school, was just when she died, my relationship with my parents was becoming increasingly conflictual. I differed in terms of my religious and spiritual beliefs from them. So I ventured away from the church, and that was a huge point of conflict. Dating was a huge point of conflict. Really, everything was a huge point of conflict. I was so incredibly activated by everything they said that I went various periods of no contact and definitely low contact. Everything that they would say would activate me, and we would get into these big fights that just made me feel like, oh my gosh, just having a relationship with my parents is so difficult. And the more that I went to grad school, and then my mom died, went to grad school to learn about psychology, the more I was learning these tools and theories, the more it actually disconnected me from my family. The more I started seeing my family and my parents, even though my mom was dead, in retrospect, looking at them as emotionally immature, looking at them as not having the tools to do certain things, looking down upon them. And I looked down upon my culture as well. Like I definitely had this viewpoint that I'm going to go to this Western school, learn psychology, and come back and enlighten my own culture because the Armenian community, the Iranian community, they're backwards. I had really taken in this, what I now know to be a colonial viewpoint of my people. And I really thought that learning these like white Western theories was going to be the way that I was going to enlighten them. And yet, the more that I knew, the more activated I was. The more I learned, the less compassionate and more judgmental I was. And there was this real tension. And the more I tried to apply the things that I was learning in school, the more it was backfiring, not working. I was feeling very ashamed, like something must be wrong with me, and definitely something is wrong with my family. I was feeling so ashamed. I must not be doing it right. I was feeling so judgmental. What's wrong with them? Why can't they get it? They don't have this viewpoint. They don't know about therapy and the theories and how to be healthy. So I really had so much judgment. And I just felt a sense of hopelessness. I felt like nothing's really going to change. And I felt like I was going to have to kind of disown not just my family, but my entire culture. And in order to be mentally healthy, to be well, to have healthy relationships, I saw these things as either ors. And a lot of daughters of immigrants will experience that. They'll feel like it feels like I'm being split in two, which is much like the bicultural experience anywhere, right? Not feeling like you belong fully here and not feeling like you belong fully there. There's a tension there and a disconnect and a fragmentation. Slowly over time, and definitely now, I see that as a byproduct of the trauma that we've experienced. Fragmentation is one of the direct impacts of trauma. And feeling like either or and neither is going to fully serve you is actually a byproduct of that disconnection from ourselves. looking at ourselves, our families, our communities, our cultures from that white Western lens, because that's the model that we're receiving of mental health, right? The DSM does not. The DSM is the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual of all mental health disorders. It does not honor context. It doesn't say, yeah, actually, if you're living in a racist society, some level of hypervigilance or anxiety is completely valid, understandable, and even functional, adaptive. It says you have an anxiety disorder. So, hello from North Virginia. There's going to be a complete pathologization, and that's a big word for just judgment. There's going to be a deep judgment. And that's one thing that I found, is that the more I went into psych and the mental health field, the more judgment I had against my own people. And anytime you have judgment against your family and against your people and against your culture, anytime you hate and dislike them, get disgusted by them, look down on them, you are disconnecting from a part of yourself. And that disconnection, it mirrors and it exacerbates the fragmentation that trauma already does. Trauma disconnects us. It disconnects us from other people. We are less trusting, more protected in relationships. It diminishes our capacity for intimacy. It disconnects us from the fullness of our experiences. If you've had trauma, it can feel scary or dangerous to feel the fullness of your anger or your sadness, your grief, your anxiety. So anytime we fragment, so we're going into therapy, just like I was going into therapy to heal my relationship with my parents and feeling more fragmented, going into grad school to learn how to serve my community and feeling more disconnected from my community. The more that happened, the more the healing was contributing to the wound rather than actually being healing. So what healed me? What actually became that culturally affirming roadmap? I slowly began to experiment in my own life with things that felt right. I stopped doing the theory. This is the season of my life I always call going rogue. I went rogue. I started with my clients doing things like self-disclosure, sharing something that had worked with my dad, sharing a genuine answer that I had as somebody that had grown up in a collectivistic culture. As I started doing that, it started resonating. And I realized these theories were not designed with us in mind. These theories were not built for daughters of immigrants straddling multiple cultural worlds. These theories, without ever saying them, nobody in my school said, hey, we're going to learn white Western theories from old white men in Europe. Nobody ever said that. But that's what it was. And that is not going to fit somebody that has a bicultural, multicultural experience. And that shame that I was feeling, the judgment I was feeling, was because I was not fitting and my family was not fitting this mold. And so I started going rogue. Hi, somebody's up from his nap. You want to say hi? It's my son, Marcus. Hi. He's not feeling well, so he's home today. And so I started going rogue. I started to use my own experience, and it was working. Daughters of immigrants, children of immigrants that I was working with were like, yeah, I've never thought of it in that way. And I felt so afraid during this time, like, oh, my supervisor is going to be like, you're doing it wrong, because I was going off script, which tells you just how powerful that script is in really reinforcing a white Western way of being. And then I just got stronger and bolder in doing that, not just in my professional life, but in my personal life. I started saying, okay, we don't have to set boundaries in just a direct way. We can use things like inshallah or we'll see, or just shaking my head or moving my body and changing the subject. These are not ways of being rude or disingenuous or not being authentic. Yeah, it would be like that in a white, Western, low context culture. But in a collectivistic culture, it's actually a way of saving face, having harmony in the relationships. I started seeing that not every cultural difference means that one culture is better than the other. I started questioning and challenging everything in the mental health field in terms of context. What context is this from? For whom? Says who? Where does this theory originate? And I started experimenting with a completely different skill set with my clients as well as in my own life. And it began really resonating. it really started feeling like, okay, I am having a universal experience that many children of immigrants have. What I am feeling about my parents is actually a byproduct of the trauma they've gone through and that I've inherited. It's a byproduct of living in larger social setups that are not designed for you, systems that were not set up for my parents, systems that operate on certain levels of racism and xenophobia. When I began seeing that, it created so much compassion. And that is one of the number one things that I find for daughters of immigrants being that foundational unlocking key to change is beginning to fully understand that the information that you have gotten has come from a white Western context, understand that your culture is not toxic, it has adapted in the midst of horrific things that have happened to it. And so everything at some point has served a function. When you understand, it creates the pathway to compassion, and compassion is necessary for change. And why is compassion for our parents necessary for changing ourselves? Because our parents are part of us. There is a concept that I really felt and was bringing into my work that I didn't even fully have words for, that I just a few years ago read in Mark Wolyn's book, It Didn't Start With You, about the flow of life and how the flow of life is this energetic flow that goes from generation to generation. And when you reject or disconnect from your family, from your parents, that actually stops you from healing. Contrary to Western white ideology, where I thought the more distance from my family, I could heal myself in separation, I tried that for years and it wasn't working. The more judgment I had toward them, the more I didn't heal. And the more I didn't heal, the more judgment I had toward them. It was this vicious cycle. When I began understanding from a different perspective. Mom, I have a headache. I'm sorry, Bubba's. I'm sorry. Drink some water, okay? Go get yourself some water, honey. You can have a sparkling water from the fridge, okay? That'll be good. The more that we have compassion for our families, meaning we understand them. And when somebody makes sense to you, that compassion can flow. That is actually the number one foundational step toward healing. Now, a lot of people mistake that with you have to continue letting your parents hurt you. If there's abuse in the family, that you've got to stay silent about it. Absolutely not. Compassion for other does not mean diminished compassion for self. I use the concept of dialectical empathy. I can have deep empathy for you. I can understand my parent did their best, could not do better, was not given more resources, education, training, experience. This makes sense given their life history and context. And I can also say, that's not enough. And I need to practice distancing myself, adjusting my expectations, changing dynamics in my relationship with you. That is the crux of the work that I do, is helping people make change in their families. So it doesn't mean that just because you have compassion for someone, that's an excuse for them to continue to harm you. But when we don't understand, because we're using a very narrow cultural viewpoint that does not fit our cultures, our histories, our backgrounds, our current and continuing realities, like how we are continuously impacted by what is happening globally in our native lands, even if we live in safety. I just had someone come to my practice and say, I need a new therapist because the therapist I've been working with for 5 years just does not get the level of survivor's guilt I feel as an Iranian woman living in the US. And this has just become a point that no matter how much I explain, she does not get it and is viewing it in a pathological sense. It's not pathological. This is a very common experience for people. But this person does not have the lived experience, nor do they have the training to be able to see the cultural lens. So that understanding, that validation is the first step. That compassion for other can also come with deep compassion for self, and needs to come from deep compassion and protection for self. That's what I began experimenting with. And as I was doing more and more work, and especially when I went into private practice, I just became bolder and bolder at being able to do that, to double down on being able to say, let's look at that and see how it has served your people. Let's look at that and make sense of it from a multi-generational standpoint. And it started clicking. It started changing. The more compassion I was having for my family, for my culture, the more I was reclaiming parts of my culture in terms of traditions or practices, rather than just looking down upon them, the more I was seeing that my grandma folding the grape leaves for hours was actually an act of mindfulness. and reflection, a ritual that was important for metabolizing really difficult emotions rather than looking at my cultures as backwards and less than. The more I started doing that, the more I actually began healing. The more I found I felt whole. The more I found that my healing was catalyzed. I did not realize that. The more I fought with my parents, against my parents, the more I was stopping that flow of life. And like I said, I didn't even have the concept for that until I read the book with Mark Wolin, was like, that's what I have been feeling. And truly, one other additional element that I'll add is that whenever someone would tell me that I was like, I reminded them of my mom or my dad, it would activate me so much because I thought, I want to be nothing like them. And now, if someone says that to me, what a compliment. The gifts of my lineage travel to me now because I am not in conflict with it. I accept what I have been given. I have forgiven what has been done, and I feel empowered to engage with my culture and engage with my family in a way that feels healthy and grounded and nourishing. And the more that I do that, the more that I am able to do that work, the more I am continuously solidifying my own wholeness. As daughters of immigrants, we cannot heal while hating our families. We cannot heal just by having distance from our families. We cannot heal fighting to understand ourselves using tools and theories and frameworks that weren't designed for us. That continues the fragmentation. That continues looking down upon us, which is a dehumanization. We need to reclaim wholeness. We need to reclaim what I call the essential goodness of our cultures. So, adding culture is not this luxury in therapy, it is a necessity to understanding you as a person. When I started recognizing that, everything changed. And slowly I was seeing that time and time again with different people in individual therapy, different daughters of immigrants, I was repeating some of the same things. And slowly I started beta testing a program. I said, what would it be like to take all of these things that I'm doing individually with all of these women and put it all together in a one-stop shop to really be able to have this linear, organized framework where people can have that cultural understanding, where people can have the opening up of compassion, where people can learn the culturally affirming tools. What if I can do that? And I started putting it all together. Years later, that is now Roots and Fruits. Roots and Fruits is a month-long program of everything that I had to learn the hard way, everything I wish I could impart to another daughter of immigrants. And I want to tell you a little bit about how I have organized it because it's very intentional. First half is going to be looking back. Second half, moving forward. In the first half, we start at the intergenerational piece. Western psychology always starts in your childhood. It always starts as if your childhood was the beginning of it all. It wasn't. We have to go back even further to look at some of the cultural legacy burdens, to look at some of the lineage gifts, to look at some of the cultural history, because that history is absolutely alive in you today. So it starts from the intergenerational piece, and then it moves into childhood. Not to blame your parents, but to address the impact on you, because the impact that it left is the pathway to your healing. I'll say that again. The impact, the wound illuminates the pathway to healing. And everybody's wounding is going to be somewhat unique, even though there are going to be some universal patterns among children of immigrants. Like a lot of our parents, culturally as well as emotional skills wise, did not learn to really tune into, address, and have curiosity for our internal world. Okay, they didn't have that. That's also a byproduct of trauma, but they didn't have that. And so that can be maybe a unique thing, but for some, it came much more in the element of neglect, and some came active shaming for having emotions or talking about vulnerabilities. And so everybody's wounding is going to be somewhat unique, and their particular wounding is going to eliminate their specific path. So then we move into childhood with each person getting their unique roadmap for how they were wounded and how that healing needs to address the specific wounds that they have incurred. Then in the second half, for moving forward, third week, we focus on relationship to self and truly bring in the body at a soul level. It's not just self-care, it's soul care, right? Trauma happens and impacts our bodies. And so the healing has to happen at the body level, okay? And the last is our relationship with others. And this is where we really finally solidify reworking the dynamic with our parents, not from our inner children, but from the adult self. And I have seen this in my relationship with my dad so much. So much has changed in my relationship with my dad because I have changed. My healing has expanded and become contagious and has healed him in ways he didn't have the tools to initiate. And so I have seen my family system change. I've seen my aunts be able to, I've seen my aunts really be able, can you cover your mouth, please? I've seen my aunts really be able to have deeper, more emotionally, just deeper and emotionally vulnerable conversations that never would have come about if I was still seeing them as the most powerful and the ones that were leading the dynamic in my family. My gifts, my healing, my shifts have become shifts in the entire family system. And that is my hope and wish for every single daughter of immigrant. Now, you can't make somebody else change, but you operating from that strongest part of you, the most compassionate, grounded, clear, and curious part, that part is going to have ripples out into your entire family system. And I always like to say it goes backwards and it goes forwards, meaning it's going to impact your siblings, your parents and grandparents, and it's also going to impact if you've got children or your peers, right? So it goes in both directions. Healing is contagious. In the same way that pain spreads out onto family units, so does healing. So does the work that you are doing. So that's the month-long program. And I offer it individually, where I can really customize something for someone individually, but I also offer it in the container that is the best suited for this kind of work, which is the group. The group is where it comes together because we are designed to heal in community. When we are in community, we learn from the collective wisdom of other people. When we are in community, we one second. You okay, Bubs? Go get some water. Go get some water, honey. Go get some water. When we are in community, we are able to have a reduction of shame because we don't feel alone. Now, everybody's story is going to be a little bit different in the group. People join in from all around the world, right? I've got someone here from Europe, someone here from North Virginia. I mean, all over. Different ethnic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, different ages, different stages, some with kids, some that don't ever want kids, some that are married, some that are single. I've got so many different people from so many different realms, but we are able to hear some of those universal themes echoed in each other's stories. And that immediately reduces shame. The reduction of shame is not just this like extra luxury, it is essential to change. Because when we feel shame, we're not in a safe place, we're in a fearful place. Shame fills us with fear and anxiety, okay? It is not a homeostatic or a balanced internal state. Shame does not make us feel safe. Shame signals to us that there is a threat to our sense of self, threat to our identity, threat to our sense of belonging. When shame is lowered, when shame is reduced, immediately you're going to have safety. Safety is essential to change. So when I hear another daughter of immigrant have a similar dynamic, run into some of the same problems, have a similar guilt that I have felt at times, that shame that gets reduced in me because I feel deeply resonant with another is essential to then being able to change and realizing I'm not the problem, I'm having a universal experience. That's safety. That happens when we are seen in community with one another. There is something incredibly powerful that happens in a group setting that just can't happen when it's just you and someone else, especially if it's a paid individual, right? You know, to some degree, especially if many of you that are on these calls, many of you that do any of my coaching programs have followed me for a very long time. So you know, like, and trust me to some degree. So you know you're going to pay me and I'm probably going to be non-judgmental and open and supportive because you kind of already have a sense of that. Very different than when you are going into a group with strangers from all over that are offering you that care, that are seeing you, deeply resonating with you, encouraging you. There is something so powerful that comes from that experience. Okay? So this group is designed, both in the way the curriculum is set up, to really highlight a few things: the cultural importance as well as the importance of your body. It's a very somatic program. What do I mean by somatic? Soma means body. Somatic means we bring the body into it. Why is the body so important? What does that even mean? It means that trauma deeply manifests in our body, right? Things like anxiety deeply manifest in our bodies. And you cannot heal from just here up. You have to know what something feels like in your body, know what feels like the right boundary versus the wrong boundary. How will you know that? There's no formula to it. It's an internal experience. And for many of us, like I said, we didn't have a lot of parents that showed a lot of curiosity or had a lot of tools for supporting our internal experience. If you're crying and your parent says, I'll give you something to cry about, or there's nothing to cry about, it disconnects you. You're having your body say it needs to cry. You're hearing from your caregivers not to cry. It creates a tension. If you were shamed for being lazy and not working and being productive, and you felt guilt at resting or needing to rest, that disconnects you from being able to really listen to your body's signals, to honor it, and to give it what it needs. So this healing has to come by reconnecting you to your body, by reconnecting you to its signals, reconnecting you to your emotional experiences. I have never worked with a daughter of immigrant who didn't need some support in this realm. I went through this as well. And it was really through re-engaging with physical activity and just noticing, re-engaging and reevaluating my relationship with productivity, and how much of that had been from a place of conditional love and needing to earn, and how much I tied my identity to how well I was doing in school or how accomplished I was at work. Those were the pieces that I had to disconnect and unpack, and they all rearranged my relationship with my body, with being able to know my signals, with being able to honor my body, to be able to know what I needed when I needed it, what I was feeling when I was feeling it. These sound like simple things. They're actually pretty complex systems for a lot of daughters of immigrants who have had a lot of, again, intergenerational trauma and warping at this level, at this body-based level. So it's a program that is going to be very much about bringing that cultural understanding, but it's also going to bring in practical tools for reconnecting to your relationship with your body, taking care of your body. You will get so many tools. So the program is chock full. Like, let me just give you a sense. When you log on to the curriculum, it's a Kajabi course. You log on, you'll see start here, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And in each one, you'll get worksheets that I have designed, redesigned, beta tested 5 billion times, worksheets that are meant to really get to the core root of the thing, whatever the thing is. So each week you have worksheets. So you will spend some time doing that homework, pouring into it, getting into the root of the matter. You've got videos of me guiding you through various somatic exercises, things that I use in my life, in my daily life, ways I bring my nervous system back into a sense of homeostasis, ways I increase my capacity for feeling uncomfortable feelings without collapsing or moving into a state of panic, ways that I can, it's called distress tolerance, tolerate being in a distressful place. And that, again, cannot happen just cognitively. It's got to happen with allowing for a physical sensation. Marcus, honey, I have a little bit more time, okay? A little bit more time. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and understanding and working together. I love you. And so you're going to log in, you're going to see those videos, and you can watch those videos as many times as you want. You have access to the online curriculum for 3 full months. The program is only a month, but you get that for 3 full months. And people go back and do the worksheets. They go back and review the videos, and I'm adding some pieces to it. So that curriculum, it's already jam-packed with things that I use all the time and is a solid toolkit. But I'm adding 2 powerful pieces partly because I've never run the group since adding these pieces into my own life. So last August, because the last time I ran the group was last March. The last time the last time I ran the group was in March. I was supposed to run it in October, ended up not running it. And the only reason I'm running it now is because I wanted to give everybody that was on the wait list a chance to have this experience again. Since then, in August, I got trained in brain spotting, and I'm going to bring brain spotting to this training, or to this program, and I'm so excited to make the things that I learned and the things that I was a recipient of, because we did brain spotting practicums the entire weekend. I learned it. So powerful. So I cannot wait to bring brain spotting into this. Additionally, just in the last month and a half or 2 months, I've been working with this energy healer in Orange County. She and I FaceTime, and she has just brought in some elements of healing around the relationship with our parents and bringing in like a divine resource that has actually healed me in ways that I have not healed before, which is kind of wild to say. I've done a lot of healing around my relationship with my parents. Obviously, that is the core and the kind of origin story of what I do with fellow children of immigrants. But she's doing some work with me that is activating a very, very deep and young part of me. And I already have given a lot of thought to how I'm going to bring that into an experience in the group. So I'm writing this meditation and this guided facilitated exercise that we're going to do in one of our video sessions. So although the curriculum is jam-packed as it is, I'm adding 2 elements from just the last year of my life that are so powerful and have been so powerful for me. I'm adding that in. So you get that full curriculum. You're getting that curriculum for 3 months. Additionally, you get a video session every single week. Now, 4 of them are included in the month-long program. This time around, you're getting a 5th one for free. So we're actually going into May, and you're getting a 3-month reunion. You are getting 6 video sessions rather than just 4. That's an additional whatever 75 minutes and 75 minutes is together, right? 150 minutes, so whatever that is. You are getting 6 video sessions. And then you've got the group chat, which is partly my favorite part. We all are in a WhatsApp chat together, and this is where people really get to know one another. We get to celebrate the things that you do on a daily basis, the little wins. You get to have a place to air that survival guilt or the fight that you got into with your mother-in-law, or to ask and solicit the collective wisdom that's in the group. I am always learning in these groups. Yes, I'm somebody that has specialized in this for 15 years, and I've created the program. Obviously, I have a good amount of expertise, but I am constantly learning. I am constantly learning in every single group from you all. And that group chat is also where people ask questions. I am able to do voice notes. I'm able to add meditations. There are various times in the past few times I've run the group over the last 3 years that people have asked for something like, okay, I don't know what to do in this situation or that situation. And then I've developed something for them. I've developed something very, very specific for them. Hey, Marcus, don't do that, papas. Hold on, honey. I'm still on, okay? I'm still on for a little bit, okay, my love? Okay, I've got about 15 or 20 minutes left. I love you. My son it's not usually like this. He does not come to any of the Roots and Fruits things. He's just on spring break and not feeling well today. So appreciate your patience as he's coughing up a lung in the background. So you are going to get that group chat as a direct access to me to help you to implement anything and to be a direct link to making change in your everyday life. The thing about therapy that was always hard for me is like you go, you talk about it, you have this week off or 2 weeks off, and then you go back in and you kind of forget and you're not in the moment anymore. You're not feeling the same way anymore. Versus in this program, you can directly, immediately voice note, text in the moment. You get real life in the moment application. And that was really, really something I wanted to provide. And time again from women, I've heard that that's been critical. Even if it's just to get some validation, like, hey, I had a really tough conversation with my mom, or today I really saw this thing and felt so much compassion for myself and the things that my mom was not able to give. And I also had compassion for her, and just a space to hear you, receive you, offer some validation and support for that experience. So the group chat is everything. Additionally, you've got some other bonuses. So the wait list, they all voted, and they voted for a worksheet that was helping people break down their own values in relation to their cultural and familial expectations. Like, how do you manage and how do you unpack what is a family expectation, which is versus what is my own values? I developed a worksheet for that. That was the most popular voted one, and I created that. That you get for free. Then the second most popular vote was for guided affirmations specific to daughters of immigrants, ones that I have done for my own life and continue to do for my own life. I'm working on a video for that. You're going to get that as a bonus. If you have ever heard me talk about my OG Boundary course, it is the first course I ever made around a topic that I've gotten so much kind of so much feedback from every child of immigrants that I've worked with that has been so difficult. Just yesterday, I actually saw on Instagram this woman who was like, my therapist told me to set boundaries with my mom, my Cuban mom. And she just laughs for the next like 10 seconds. And it just highlights like what child of immigrants has not had a hard time setting boundaries. And so I wanted to create, why do we have such a hard time? And what can we do differently? Is it just not having boundaries at all? Or is it continuously having that tension? Like that was what I was struggling with my family. How can I have boundaries around, I have a very different worldview, different religious and spiritual beliefs than them. I still do. So how do I navigate? I'm not going to go to church. How am I going to navigate that while still honoring them and maintaining the connection? This is an entire course. It's 36 minutes, 3 different modules, comes with an accompanying workbook to help you reflect on your experiences. You get that for free. It's usually $47. Then a couple years ago, I polled my community on Instagram and said, hey, what is the number one struggle you have? The most popular by far was guilt, just intense, debilitating guilt. And so I did a 2-hour masterclass all about guilt, helping you understand. I think I've got like 14, 15, if not more, different kinds of guilt that I break down, as well as, hold on, bubbies, hold on, Marcus. I'm still in the midst of doing my work, okay? I'm going to need a little more patience. I'll let you know when I'm ready, okay, Libby? As well as what to do with the guilt. Like, what do we do with that guilt? How do we rework our relationship with that guilt? How do we, it's not going to go away, but can we relate to it differently? Does it have to rule our lives? Or can we experience a sense of peace, freedom, and ease even if that guilt is present? And so that 2-hour masterclass, that's usually $67 plus the $7 accompanying ebook, that's free and that's a bonus for you. And the beautiful part about the guilt masterclass and the boundary course is you have lifetime access to them. I had somebody actually message me a couple weeks ago that was one of the first 5 people that bought my boundary course. And she actually said that. She's like, I was like one of the first people that bought your boundary course. And I remember DMing you and you told me, hey, you're one of the first 5. And she's like, I just recently went back in and redid it. And it was so helpful because I'd forgotten certain things. There's a new situation that came up because I got married and I used the boundary course piece again. So know that you've got lifetime access. So if you need a refresher, it's right there at your fingertips. Same thing with the Guilt Masterclass. You can go back to that workbook. You can go back to the ebook. Yes, Bubby, what is going on? What's wrong? What's wrong? What hurts? Your head? Okay, my love. Try to close your eyes, honey. And I can give you some medicine in a little bit, okay? I need a little more time, like 15 more minutes, okay, babies? Okay. And so you're going to have lifetime access to that. You're going to have lifetime access to those 2 pieces. You're going to have the worksheets at your fingertips. The curriculum with the videos, you're going to have access beyond the program. The 3-month reunion is always so special. Look, I am not promising. This is a promise I'm not going to make. This is what I'm going to say. I am not promising that you will be completely fully healed and all of your work will be done after a month. That would be ridiculous. Okay? What I am saying is that you are going to have the roadmap for healing. You're going to have the pieces that need to be there. And how do I know they need to be there? Because I tried every way of doing it. And it wasn't until I included those ways that something began to shift in my own healing journey, as well as in my clinical work. People tell me all the time, I want to do what you do. How did you decide to do this? I didn't decide to do this. It just kind of happened because I was searching for my own healing. And as I found it, I was sharing it with clients, and many clients were illuminating it. It became this symbiotic process that was happening. School is not where I learned it. I learned it through my own life as well as in my clinical work with people. That's where I learned it. And I actually had to unlearn a lot of things from grad school that were unhelpful because they were some from a very, very stringent cultural viewpoint, as well as upholding a lot of white supremacy, doing in therapy the work of cultural and psychological colonization that actually mirrored a lot of the violence, telling someone that their grief after 3 months is abnormal and diagnosing them with a disorder versus many cultures around the world having the concept of the first year where grief is allowed to be. That is hurting and harming somebody just because white supremacy says your culture is less than, you're less healthy. So I didn't set out to do this work. It really found me through my own healing. And it made me see where those elements that are critical to healing needed to be introduced. And then I took all of that and I put it together into a program. And I designed it to be in community with other women because we need each other, because I needed other people, because I needed my clients echoing my story, even though they didn't know it. I needed fellow daughters of immigrants that I grew up with whom I could have some of these conversations. They have been so critical, even more critical than learning some theory in grad school that was made by somebody in 19 something something who's a white man in Austria and has no bearing on my family's history, coming from a genocided people, coming from a colonized people, coming from a multi-ethnic Iranian community with war and displacement and so much upheaval in that country. No, that theory is not going to fit. This is an entire framework. Plus, it's going to give you the skills. Like I said, the skills you learn in this program are the skills that I use. If I'm having a day where I feel anxious, activated, I'm hurting in what's going on in the world. If you follow me, you know I am somebody whose humanity is intact. And so what happens in the world directly impacts my mental health. What do I do? What do I do as my rituals through the day? I feel activated between clients. How do I support my own nervous system? This is a program where you are going to leave with so many tools. It's not just going to be, I learned a lot in a cognitive sense. It's going to be, if I'm activated at my parents' house, I can go to the bathroom and I know I've got 10 tools in my toolkit that I can do. Because that's a question that I got from so many daughters of immigrants. And it's also, I know, baby. And it's also like one of these cultural differences where a lot of white Western therapy is like purely insight oriented, just the inside alone. Whereas for a lot of us, that's a privilege. And it also comes from the privileges of those that kind of started therapy, living in mostly wealthy, affluent places, versus like the kind of therapy that's like, practically, what do? I am trying to change a relationship. And many times it would be like, let's just look at that. Let's explore that. Let's unpack that. And really not helping clients create actionable change in their lives. And I wanted the program to be practical. I wanted the program to be truly practical, for you to have tools you didn't have before, because that's going to build a sense of confidence. That's going to build a sense of empowerment. That's going to help you experiment with things that can give you the kind of relationship you want with your parents. Is it all going to happen in a month? No. But now you're going to have a bunch of tools to experiment with. So by that 3-month reunion, I can't tell you how many times I come back. I know, baby. I know you're struggling, honey. A few more minutes, okay? All right, my love? If you need, you can go lay down in the bed too. You are going to have so many tools to experiment with. And I love that 3-month reunion, many people say, oh my gosh, this has shifted, or that fell into place, or now that thing that I was working on, I've seen it come to fruition, and it has shifted in a way that I didn't think it could before. And that for me is always so satisfying, to hear at the 3-month reunion all of the fruits of people's labor really be able to, be realized at that point. And that's why I love doing that, because that check-in is always really wonderful to see how people have continued with the tools and the skills. So this isn't like by the end of the month you're going to be magically cured. This isn't magic. This is just everything that was missing from my clinical training. And mind you, I have a master's in race and ethnic relations, like a sociology background. I have an additional master's in marriage and family therapy, and I have a PhD in counseling psychology. I didn't learn any of this from school. I learned this from my lived experience as well as my clinical work. And it worked with me reading up on indigenous psychology, multicultural psychology, reading, BIPOC scholars and their work. Like, it was all the unlearning I did from grad school as well as relearning from people that did come from cultures like mine, people that did honor that colonization impacts our mental health today as adult children of immigrants. That's been the key. And that is the framework that I bring to this entire program. This might be the last time I offer it. Okay, the curriculum is developed and I've been thinking of new ways to offer it, but doing these live launches takes a tremendous amount of time and energy. And there are a number of different projects that are vying for my attention in different ways that things could go. So I cannot promise this will be offered again. It's usually offered twice a year. Last year was just once. I wasn't even going to offer it again, but I really truly felt indebted to those that had been waiting on the waiting list. The only spots that are open are in the 10 a.m. on Tuesday Pacific Standard Time, so in 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time group. So that would be kind of mid-ish day, noon, if you're Mountain Time, later a little bit in the afternoon. If you're East Coast, be kind of early evening, evening in Europe, depending on where you are in Europe and Asia. So this is great for anybody around the world because it can really accommodate a number of different schedules, but it's Tuesday, 10 a.m. Only a few spots left here. These are the last few spots that are left. Yes, do I have to do this? And people are like, well, you just do this to make money. Well, yeah, we have to live and survive. I have to keep the lights on and keep my kids fed and, do all of that. But this is truly the gift that I wish every single daughter of immigrant could have. And I've never, ever, ever, ever had a single person ask for a refund or say that the program was unhelpful for them. Not once. Not once have I had that experience. And I truly stand by that because this comes from my own life. This comes from literally testing all of these pieces out with hundreds of daughters of immigrants over 15 years. So it's not magic. It's not going to completely change your life in 1 month, but it is the critical ingredients that I have found to be necessary for change. So if you are struggling in your relationship with your parents, if you are struggling feeling like I'm doing all the right things for mental health healing, but it's like something feels like it's missing. I get so many people that are like, I have a really good therapist, but it's like something is just missing. And I found your page and I feel like this might be the missing component. Listen to that. Listen to that. I have always trusted in that divine inner knowing. If you are feeling like this feels like the right program for me, listen to that voice. As daughters of immigrants, we can be so good at caring for other people. We are far less good at caring for ourselves. You deserve it. I charge $325 or $350 an hour for a single session of therapy. Okay? You are paying for less than 4 individual sessions, and you are getting 6 sessions with an entire group of support community to hold you and hold space for you. You're getting an entire curriculum that is designed and organized to help you understand yourself, reflect, make insights and changes. You're getting tons of videos on resources that are going to help you soothe your body, connect with your body, increase your capacity for distress so that you are no longer, dare I say, a slave to discomfort. When you learn about your emotions and how to know them, witness them, and master them, you unlock freedom to life. You unlock freedom to relational well-being, to being in relationship with people in a way that they're not constantly activating and triggering you. Because if someone constantly triggers you, they're in some ways controlling you. And I was so reactive with my parents. And as much as I was doing the complete opposite of what they wanted, they were still setting up that choice. Reactivity, I was just saying this to a client right before this. Reactivity is false choice. It's falsely making us feel like we're in control, but it's actually a forced choice because you're just doing the opposite of what someone wants. You're just reacting to what someone wants. And many of us are doing that with our immigrant parents. I was very reactive for many, many, many years. So this program, for less than 4 individual sessions with me, is helping you understand your emotions, connect deeply with yourself, understand your lineage, understand your childhood, use that for a roadmap for soothing and reconnecting and reparenting your inner child. You're getting all of the goodies and freebies and boundaries, guilt, family expectations versus your values, affirmations that you can say and really deeply solidify into your nervous system, change the stories of what you're telling yourself, because that truly does determine how you operate and perceive the world, operate in the world and perceive the world. And you're getting the group chat with all of us where we are in it with each other. And those video calls, I know, baby, I know. My son's struggling here. A few more minutes. You are getting all of that for less than the price that you would for 4 individual sessions. And there are payment plans available. There are payment plans where you can break this down into a few months and make it much more affordable. And again, you will have access to the online curriculum for 3 months. I want to see if there are any questions from anybody that's on here. You can type it into the chat. We're almost done, honey. We're almost done, and then we're going to go get Penny. We're almost done, my love. Anybody having any questions? The group starts next week, y'all. This is the last little bit. This is the last push. Final spots in this group. Is it worth it financially? I think so. I've never had somebody ask for a refund. I've never had somebody say, this didn't meet my standards. There is so much that you're going to get from the program. I don't have the time for it. But you're going to have access to the worksheets for 3 months. You're going to have access to the worksheets for 3 months. Okay? So you can go back and do. You can go back and do additional ones when you've got time. But the container is going to give you that support. And I've had people who do every worksheet and spend 2 hours, and I've had people that take 10 minutes. And trust that you will get what you need. You will get what you need through the program, and then you're going to get access to that curriculum to be able to do it, right? Oh, well, I don't know. There's a lot going on, and I get those all the time. Practically, there's never going to be a perfect time for healing, but think about how much time and effort you spend in the unhealed state. I think about all of the effort it took to be so reactive, so embittered toward my family. That was effort. It was just effort I was used to. Doing it differently was effort as well, but it gave back to me. Not all effort is the same. That effort of being reactive, reactionary, so angry and, resentful toward my family, toward my culture, looking down upon them, that took a lot of effort, and it didn't give back to me anything. It just drained me. Whereas the effort to do it differently, find compassion, understand my family, find those points of connection with my dad, especially because he was then at that point my only living parent. And I was at this place of, am I really going to cut him off? Or am I somehow going to find a way to understand this man and have a relationship with him? That was effort. But the more I put into that, the more it gave back to me. I am literally doing this work with you today, doing this work with women around the world today because of that effort. So that effort gave back to me. It actually expanded me. It made me a better person, a more compassionate person, someone that now is a good parent to my children, because I reparented myself through that process. Being bitter, being angry, being resentful, just looking at my parents and blaming them for everything they hadn't gotten and feeling like that's my burden and feeling so angry that I've got to do that work. I understand why I felt that way. I'm not judging myself for it, but that didn't give back to me. So if you feel like this isn't the time or I can't put in the time, think about how much time, energy, and effort you put into staying the same. It takes a lot of energy and effort to stay the same. Could you imagine the freedom and the ease and the peace that you would feel if the relationship with your family were one where you were much more grounded? If you were the parent to your inner child and you engaged with your parents from an adult standpoint, if you could reinitiate a more positive, more easeful, more joyful dynamic with your family, how much more value would be added to your life? Now when there's a family party, I look forward to it. Before, I would dread it. I would dread it so much. And I'll just say this, is that sometimes, again, in the Western world, we equate physical distance with emotional distance. I was physically very distant from my family. I was really away from them and pushing away actively, but emotionally, I was a wreck. Emotionally, I was still so much of a wreck because emotionally, I was still tied. I had not created the psychological boundaries. I had not healed and resolved those things within me. It does not matter how much space physically you take from your parents. What I'm talking about is not breaking ties with your family, is not how much you actually spend time with them. You might still need a heavy level of distance, but have you resolved the emotional pieces? Come here, my love. Come here. We're almost done. Have you resolved the emotional pieces? If we don't have that psychological boundaryness, if we don't have the ways to support ourselves in soothing our bodies, reparenting ourselves, grounding ourselves, if we don't have that, it doesn't really matter if we've stayed away from our family or we're not going to the family party. It really doesn't matter because we will not have internal peace. And this program is designed to give you the tools to have internal peace, freedom, to not have guilt run your life, to not have boundaries run your life, to not have reactivity, to not feel overwhelmed by and trapped in caretaking that doesn't fit for you anymore, in a role of peacemaker for the family that doesn't fit for you anymore, to truly engage with what you want to keep from your culture, what you want to edit from your culture, and what you want to discard. What do you want to keep? What do you want to edit? What do you want to discard? And that's that active effort that is gonna give back to you. Don't wait. We are in the last final few days of signing up. When this group, 10 a.m. group, is full, it's full. I am not opening up a new one. This will be the only group that is left. There are only a couple spots in that. The bonus stack is available to you. It is the juiciest bonus stack I have ever offered. And my son has been so patient. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for tuning in from Europe, from North Virginia, from wherever you are in the world. Healing is possible, but you've got to have the right guidance and the right framework, because otherwise it's actually not just a hindrance, but it's a total hindrance and an obstacle. It will actually push you farther back. And I experienced that for years and years and years. And I hope that this program gets to every daughter of immigrant who needs it. I'm excited about the women that are already in the groups. I cannot wait for new members to be added, just a few spots. And so I cannot wait to meet you all. I hope that you got something from today, and know that I am always a resource for you. So feel free to reach out should you have any questions about any of this, or if you want to schedule a one-on-one chat to really talk about how the group program can be impactful and beneficial for your life. Okay, my son has been very patient. Thanks for everything, Marcus. Thank you, Bubba's. I know you're having a headache and some coughs. And we're gonna go pick up my daughter. Love from my heart to yours. Bye, everybody. Okay.